because, I mean, we don't want people to have control over us. We shouldn't allow people to have control over us, because of course, when we say authority, I mean, we're talking someone above us, but not control, not have that power over us. We shouldn't allow people to have that control or that power over us, because God is the ultimate person who has authority and who has the power. God has the power, but we have the power that's in us is through God and not through man. So, I mean, that sometimes we have to, look at to see where our authority comes from, where it comes from. Who gives us that authority to do what we do? And if we're using our authority in the right manner. In the time when Paul and the Roman Empire and its government was transitioning from being a republic to living under the sole rules of the empire, the Roman government, under the leadership of the emperor, used punishment to keep people in line. And when I heard the word power, that's what came to mind, keeping people in line. So, and I don't think, I mean, that keeping people in line meaning, strictly doing what you are ordered to do. Of course, when we're on our jobs, our boss is actually, our supervisor, but keeping, we shouldn't allow, I mean, I wouldn't say shouldn't allow, but, that line of accountability shouldn't be where it's actually controlled. Because when you're doing your job, you're doing your responsibilities and your duties, that means you signed up on it and you're committed to doing that. But then again, if you're not doing it, then that's when the accountability kicks in, and that's when your supervisor, your leadership would be able to see where you're not doing it. That's where the line of, where the rules plays a part in what you're doing. The legal system of law did not exist and was not strong enough to keep some things in order. So the system that the Romans had, it provided the Roman citizen with legal protection. And that's what we have. We have legal protection here now. However, the emperor that claimed the sole authority could override, ignore, or change the law. And if we look at our government, that's what they're doing today. So how do we fit in making those, allowing how we can override, how we ignore, or how we change some of these laws in our government today. The punishments for violating the laws back then or rebelling against the emperor was cruel and dehumanizing. Often the means of punishment for disobeying the emperor or the Roman law were horrific. One of the cruel means punishments was crucifixion. And when I read that, it's like the crucifixion, that means, and I thought about how Jesus was crucified. So people were actually being crucified that way because of the punishment that they did. So, and we see why, the same thing happened to Jesus. So, looking at on page 38 and the block, it says, God expects us to respect rightful authority, but we are to do so without dishonoring him. So let's talk about that. How can we do things without disrespecting or dishonoring God, but we know we have to respect authority?
Just like what's going on now, whoever's in charge or whoever has that position over you, don't treat them as a god. I think that's the ultimate. I'm gonna give you that respect, and because you're in that position. But I'm not going to honor you as a God. I think that's, then you're not putting you on that same level as God. So I think that's my take on that.
Okay, I mean, with the government, I mean, because every 4 years when we elect a president or whatever, the changes in the government, takes place. So when we look at the, the things that are set in place, is it to benefit us or, to benefit the whole country? I mean, whatever rules or guidelines that's set in place is not to benefit everybody, but with us being able to rightfully respect what's in place, and the authority that who's putting it in place, how can, we know it's wrong, some of the things are wrong, we know, but what are we doing to actually help change those things, but then again, not disrespecting and dishonoring God in how we do it.
I'm not totally understanding the question because go
As it says here in the book, and that's what we are to follow the law of the land, like our taxes, like it says, we pay our taxes, we try to follow the law to the best of our ability. That's within reason, because I think sometimes you just have to use your, judgment for some things, cause like when you don't wanna disobey God, but, you don't wanna disobey God, you wanna do what's the right thing. But then, like I say, the law, sometimes the law can be misconstrued. So you have to use discernment, I think, for some things in order to try to do the right thing. That's what your focus should be, trying to do the right thing. And if you do that, everything should fall in place. But like the three Hebrew boys, they knew that they always honor God. So no matter what the people do, they still did what they knew what was right before God. So that's what I think. We just use our discernment and just try to do the right thing, and I think everything else will fall in place.
Well, of course, we know throughout, history, even in today, it's corrupt. We know it's corrupt. Painful, we see, painful things that's still taking place, injustice everywhere, corruption everywhere. So my thing is, how can we see these things, knowing it's there, and then, we know that there's a high authority. How are we dealing with that? How are we letting ourselves into place, seeing that these things are going on? What are we doing to help change, or letting others know that there's a higher authority who will be able to change, or we have to, because there's two sets of world now, the one that we live in, and then there's the kingdom. So how do we see ourselves living in the kingdom world and, well, in the corrupt world, but still yet being in the kingdom world? And the wealth, of course, we see the wealthier getting wealthier and the poor are getting poorer. And they're not being treated equally. So what are we doing to help, share the word? What are we doing to help stop some of the corruption that's going on?
I think some of the things to help or just display what we believe in our faith and our if we keep our focus on God, and if we truly display our faith, I think people will see that and respect that, and they won't ask you to. Well, hopefully they won't ask you to do things that they know are just not just blatantly, especially if they know you have faith. They know that you are a Christian or whatever, and that's just us. I'm talking about just now. Cause I know back in the day, they didn't care, they just wanted you to follow their rules and everything, but, now that we have laws in place and, trying to keep them at their word, and, but now we also have people who are advocates for other people or social action who speak out and people gather the things that they hear or that they like or they know that's fair. I think they'll gather and then just become like a band for righteousness, for what's right.
And according to what Sister Mac was saying, it's true too. But we need to make sure that when it's time for election, that these people know that this is not what we're gonna stand for. We have to, go out and tell, advocate for people who we know that's for. Also, election was disconnected, that they still, we're not voting for you, we didn't vote for you to do this. So when it's time for election, don't come back saying you're gonna do this, but then you're in the office, you do not do that. That Christians are not exempt from their responsibilities
mean, in the system that we have right now, it's a give and take. So sometimes, well, not sometimes, when the politicians go in and negotiate, sometimes you have to give up something to get something. And so that bad stuff is, you know, what we got to deal with. A little bit of bad to get this good, if you want to put it in that situation. Because there's always that thin line of politics and your values. So when you go in there, when they go in there, and when the Democrats are just going in and trying to negotiate, okay, we'll give this up to get a little bit of this pie. You know, this. So I think we just got to, you know, the system is corrupt. So it's going to take baby steps. It's taking baby steps to get it fixed. And the way you fix it is to vote, and then gradually, you know, because for instance, this rule about no term limits for the congressman and the city, you know, that's been part of the problem because you know, the people who are making these rules stay in control forever. You know, so you know we got the president who leaves every 48 years, but the people who are really making the rules stay in power, stay in control, making those rules.
Those ones who we vote for, sometimes, once they get in office, then they become corrupt. So how do you do that? How do you do that?
Mr. Chair, I was thinking, how do you do with, if it's against what you believe? If something is happening against what I believe, and if I believe in the true and living God, and if the policy that they're implementing or what they want to do is against what I believe, I will stand alone. Because I know, but respect, it says respect authority. Okay, you can respect authority and still voice your concern. You can respect authority and still voice your concern. Just like you said a few minutes ago, give to Caesar what is Caesar. Yeah, okay, we are Caesar now, but if we are people that have to pay taxes, that have to purchase houses, that have to borrow sometimes. But if you do these things, you do it with respect, knowing that you got to pay it back. You can't just borrow something and not pay it back. It's authority. You have to respect authority. Even if the car that you bought was a flop, you bought it today and a month later the car falls apart. Still, we have to respect authority. It's not just one thing of paying money or time. It's in all areas. Respect authority. Respect your elders. Respect the people on your job. And to disagree. But to disagree with respect. There's always a way to do something. You know, give Caesar, give me what's mine, give you what's yours. But in ultimate, all belongs to God. He has the final word. He is in control of all things.
Even our paycheck. I mean, what we do, what we have, it's not ours. God gives us to see how well we take care of it, how well we share, how well we spend it, how well we use it.
You know, I just wanted to add to this, so the authority that we're trying to follow has to be, it should be lawful but when we know that authority is doing the wrong thing, then that's what we have to walk. I mean, it will take time to cut the head off that string, but you know, so how do we go about doing that? It's like Caesar, he was corrupt, but people still had to give up those, you know, pay those taxes or whatever. So it's the same situation here. You know, we know that, you know, our administration is corrupt. So it's going to take a little bit of time for us to make that change. So if somebody's doing something wrong, you know, I'm going to look at it and say, you know, how can I get him out of that position of authority? You know, even if it comes to the principal or whoever owns relational children, if he's not doing the right thing, then okay, it's that the change is not going to be immediate, but our place should take care of that, but it's just gonna take a while, and then, you know.
Let's look at, page 39, at the top of the paragraph, where it says, at the bottom, in the scripture, Jesus offers clear insight into our dual, citizenship by reminding us to honor God and to respect human authority while teaching. And in the temple during the Passover week, Jesus was challenged by the Pharisees, Herodians, and others trying to trap him with a political question. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor instead of choosing sides? Jesus reframed the issue, and he was demonstrating that it is possible to honor both God and Caesar. So it's possible to honor God and Caesar. But how we do it? How we do it? How we honor God and Caesar? And we have to respect, do our duty, and then honor God in the same person, in the same place. So once we do that, then we know. But ask the question. The church, of course, we know the church is not a part of the government. But then again, the church requires authority, paying not taxes, but paying the tithes and offerings to help support. So with that, we know that, like I said, our money, everything that we own belongs to God. So if you know that you're required to pay your 10%, and if you're not paying it, and it's a learning process. Of course, not everybody understands, but once you understand and learn that's a process, and that's a God's word actually, that's true. What about if you're not doing it? What are the consequences of you not paying your tithes and offerings to the church to help support the church?
Do I have a flat tire? Something go broken, they have to everybody needs something.
So how do we share that with others? I mean, we live by example. So and living by example is one of those. So then how do we share that with others?
I remember, Brad had said if we get up and give our testimony before we started giving tithes, what happened, before we started paying our tithes, and what was the outcome after we started paying our tithes. When you start paying your tithes, all your needs are met. All your wants might not be met, but your needs, your light, your water, your car, if you pay the tithes, those things are being met. All my needs now is the story.
Sometimes we think we need those things and we don't. So
I was gonna say that, like she was saying, you have to testify, tell people, or just, sometimes you could just be having a conversation like I was having a conversation with my last time. And we were in the store, we were getting food. And, one of the young men obviously was staring at me. So, once I had already placed my order, we were just talking, and then I was explaining, and I said, that's so good. I said, he's doing things, and you don't really realize he's doing it. And I was just kind of giving him a little, my testimony. And the guy obviously did. So when we went to get our food, the man had already paid our food, everything. And I'm saying, he said, I heard everything you said. I didn't even know he was listening to us, but he paid our food. And then little things like that happen
said the government deceives us? Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I said,
When you were talking about the paycheck and doing that comment.
oh, I think the government sees that we,
Okay, oh, sees, okay.
see that we need those, we need to depend on them more so to get what we need, because they know that we have to pay those taxes, and then we neglect our finances here at home.
So, but what we are doing is I'm just confused about that, the government sees. Because what we do, we are employed by them, we give them our skills, they give us a paycheck. And so, you know, we are obligated to paying taxes. That's not a question. You know, we are also obligated to paying our 10%. That's not a question. It is, you know, whether we want to be obedient or not. People choose to be obedient or not. And, you know, you can't say, well, I can't pay this month because I got to do this, I got to do that. Just like when we have a program in the church, everybody rushes to pay the taxes, to pay that taxation for that program, but then everything else in the church goes numb for the rest of the month. And so, you know, what it is that the reason why people are struggling, because your first obligation is to God. Your first obligation is to God. And matter of fact, Uncle Sam don't even trust us. That's why he take it out. And he don't give us the authority to bring it back to him. He take it from us. But God gives us the opportunity to bring it back to him. You don't say, well, no, I'm going to take this out on the front end. No, that's what the government does. Because, you know, he can't trust the people.
The government sees what we're unsuspected, they know that we're gonna make sure that those things are paid. So that's why they and saying that, the government will touch us. And when they see that we're doing stuff, when they see that we're trying to do stuff the right way, they may go up on stuff. They go up and they more, so they can get more.
But the thing about that, too, is the fact that what our problem is that just because we see something, we don't always have to spend our money. You know, when you hold your money back, you can control the government. When those people back then, with the little bit of money they were making, decided to walk to work rather than use the bus, it forced the government of that state to end that boycott by allowing black folks to sit wherever they wanted to sit on the bus. So we have become to the point where we believe that we have to spend our money, and we don't. What we have to learn to do is that, okay, that's what you want to do, you know, then this is what we're going to do, and we're not going to spend our money. So because without us spending money, then they have nothing. You know, so, you know, the only thing we need to spend the money on are the necessities. All the other things, that's how you boycott, and it's called civil disobedience. That's how we deal with the government when things are not working the way we are being obedient to the government. We're paying the taxes, but we're not just giving you the other money in our pocket. And that changes things. That changed a whole lot of stuff. explain that separation. What does it mean, though?
The separate portion of that's called the separation. The government, the church, of course, you know, the church is not supposed to be, is it, a part of the government. They work differently because the, all, I don't know, the authority of our faith, and knowing that, the government it has a different responsibility than what the church, plays. We know that the corruption and everything that's going on in the government, or even in the world, how our faith plays a part in, you know, how can we separate our faith from what we see that's going on, corruption in the world.
Go ahead. So the way I understand the question, so if we start bringing religion into the government, I think that's where that separation, I think that's where your question is going. So if I'm praying in school, like and so they want that separation. I don't, do I struggle with it? Not really, but do I think they should be involved, religion should be a part of it? I think it should. I think that's the ultimate power. I think religion should be everywhere. So that separation it was battle talked about it, and they won that, but I think it should be back. I think that in my point of view, and I think there's a little discussion now about bringing the Ten Commandments back into each one to bring it back into the classrooms. So we got to look at why they want that back in the classroom. Yeah, I agree with all the different religions. That could be an issue. Okay, what religion does this school support? We got a Catholic school out there, so it will be an issue. It will be.
But the separation of church and state is about the government not being able to force a religion on a person. That's all that means, separation of church and state. For an example, in China, in certain places, they are forced to worship, Buddhism or something like that. But in our country, the Constitution says the separation of state is really about the government not forcing a religion on a person. But what happened is, when you had the lady, I forgot her name, that fought the prayer in school concept, they weren't forcing a religion on the children, they were just doing a prayer. But the people back then, haven't been able, they just allow it to go through. And it happened. So, to be honest with you, in these days and times, I wouldn't want nobody teaching my grandchildren in school, a religion that is. Because what happened is that they poison these young people's minds. I mean, look how adults get twisted up. They go to a church and they hear something and then they run back and, we ain't doing it right. But they haven't studied what those other people's beliefs are. Y'all remember the Jonestown massacre? Those were some good Christians in Ohio. That white man went in their church. And the things he started wooing over them, using the word of God and twisting it, that they started to the point where he told them, God told him that he is supposed to sleep with these women in the church. and men were bringing their wives for him to sleep with because he said so. You see how gullible people are. And but separation of church and state is just the government can't force a religion, only a one type of religion.
I know right now in Head Start, at work, they can't celebrate any holiday. Kids can't be involved in any holiday. They can't celebrate nothing. And I can understand, I hear you're probably saying that, because of the different religion in there, and maybe something had happened, during a certain time, now they stop it, they don't celebrate. No type of, holiday. Nothing. You can't celebrate anything.
Because the way people twist things up. I mean, if you all paid attention to the news this morning, they just had a big celebration of when the Civil War began over there on Fort Moultrie this weekend. They just had a big celebration there about the beginning of the Civil War here in South Carolina. And then on the other side, flip side, they're saying, well, we don't want you all to celebrate this. We don't want you to celebrate that. We're going to withdraw funds from you and everything. So, as we sit back and we are discussing these things, there in parts of South Carolina, the Civil War reenactment are going into public schools and teaching that part of the history, but they won't teach the other part of the history either, about slavery.
And that's so true because, the mayor just said, you know what? I have a teacher, and I could tell about how is your teacher. And because they don't always go by stuff they hear other people tell them, they don't have to do things. Sometimes, he said, he was teaching that, black people weren't here. He came because we wanted to. And Christopher Columbus was here first. I told him, no, I think you got that wrong. I think the Native Americans were here first. And then the black people were shipped over here. But they came against their will, but they lied to them too. But just the idea that that's what they're telling them now. I said, no, you use your own history. And those, what that person is talking about, they can't even tell you. Because you're telling Christopher Columbus said the world was flat. So you just go for the foot. But, no, you're right. The Native Americans were here first. He did not believe that. And I think that's so crazy. Well, everybody knew it was. I mean, the Native Americans.
But the guys know it. What they have is they believe that if they just continue to tell you a lie, eventually you'll believe it, and many of us do. Truth, telling the truth has been pushed way out, and the lie is always as easy to accept because it sounds good and it feels good. Exactly. Yeah, that was going to come about.
people were killed, but, you know, we all celebrate. You see pictures of the Native Americans bringing the turkey and us all together back in that time for Thanksgiving. That was not a good time for them. And so that story of Thanksgiving, it kind of gives me a different thought now that, you know, just learning about, you know, how the, they came over and just, you know, took all what Native Americans had, the land and everything, and they're supposed to accept it. And that's not what
But
happened.
that gesture by the Native Americans, what they were doing was helping those people from the Europeans to survive. That was, but they were extending like a olive branch of peace, and it helped them to survive. But after they survived, then they came back and started taking over, just like they did in Africa. When the Europeans got to Africa, the Africans had already knew God, but they came and tried to sell them their white God, and that's what caused the problem. And so that's why these natives. So what happened is in every area there's tribalism. So there was tribalism, and they still got it going on in Africa. This tribe against that tribe, just like in our community, this gang against the gang over here, the same thing. So what this is, the white man saw an advantage, saw an opportunity to take advantage, and they did. And that same old thing is still working today. You know, they once they can set that course of discord between us, and we just go and we just let them have it, and that's what Satan does in the church. All Satan does is find one person in the church who got a little upset and say, yeah, look how them people treat you, boom, boom, and then they take and they run with that instead of trying to come and say, come, let us reason together and make peace. We don't do that.
Sister Joan, talk about sit-in. You know, I don't know. We sit in, but I think in the former days, our parents, our grandparents, they really, really came together to do what they needed to do. Here we are divided. I don't want to do that because you like doing that, and I don't want to do that, even if it's a good thing. Because they sit in. I can remember when I see the word sit in, it reminds me of Crest, Woolworth, and Charleston, downtown Charleston, where they sit in, they couldn't go to a restaurant, they got to go to the back door to get some food and go back. No, we're going to sit in. They sat in Woolworth and Crest. You have to do something to make a difference. You can't be so divided. It's not a time for division. It's time to work together, sit in, do what's necessary to bring things together, because we didn't come in because we want to. We didn't come in because we want to.
African Americans, people, we
my grandmother aunt.
And who else? Who else you said is working with that? And who else?
God.
God. And what else was supposed to do? So you tell her, okay. Okay, show them your picture, and you have some pictures that are showing that you are respectful and who are not respectful. So her, Ronnie gonna start up for her.
The girl is not sharing with the boy because she thinks it's all hers.
Anyone, and you show them the picture, you point to the picture. Okay, Kiki, you should tell them your picture. She's helping you, right? Okay, go ahead. What's happening to your picture down here?
The little boy sharing the umbrella.
Okay, show them another one that was sharing with them. And what is that happening in that picture?
They're taking turns, and then the little boy is helping the grandma.
Those are pictures of when the little boy is at the grandma. Okay, so what normally happens if you don't, do what you're supposed to do and do the right thing?
You can see it first. You can go on your room, no TV, no phone, no iPad, no friends. Everything your parents are like you, and they don't see you, but they still feed you.
Riley, why you look at your grandma when you
Okay, Kiki, what's gonna happen to you? You don't put the right thing on you. Show the different. Stand up.
If you don't listen, you'll get in big trouble, and then after you'll get a big spanking.
All right, all right. Thank you, y'all did a marvelous job this morning.
I was trying to zoom in on your picture to see if it would have come up how close it would have been up here. Respect for rightful authority.
What I got out of it is that rightful authority. The rightful authority we have definitely is God. And as long as we keep